The chamber of the Galactic Council was a place where light and shadow mixed in strange ways. High above, crystalline lamps floated in silence, casting a glow that touched the faces of hundreds of alien leaders. They had gathered in one voice, united for one purpose, and their words carried across the vast hall. The judgment was already decided before the first vote was cast. Humanity, they said, was finished. A cold voice began the declaration. It came from an elder of the Krell Dominion, his skin shining like polished stone. He raised his hand and spoke without fear. Within hours, the human worlds will burn. Their fleets will scatter. Their armies will collapse. The species will be remembered only as a warning for others who dare to challenge the council. No one disagreed. Across the seats, claws tapped on glass tables. Tentacles moved with lazy motions and insectoid wings buzzed softly as if in quiet amusement. The council was not debating. They were celebrating. For them, this war was already over before it had even begun. Humanity was seen as small, fragile, reckless, and doomed, the chamber filled with voices repeating the same prediction. Ours, one alien repeated with certainty. Only ours, and the humans will kneel. Others laughed, their echo bouncing against the towering walls. But far beyond the council chamber, in the dark silence of space, humanity was not laughing. Humanity was waiting. Hidden behind asteroid belts, drifting in the shadows of broken moons, warships rested like predators in the deep sea. Their hulls were dark, built to absorb light, their engines silent as the void itself. The crews inside spoke little, their eyes focused, their hands steady. They knew what the council did not. They knew that the war would not take hours. It would not take days. It would be decided in minutes. The narrator's voice lingers here, cold and sharp, reminding the audience of the arrogance of the council. They thought humanity would fall before the first sun had set. They thought the story of mankind was about to end. But they were wrong, fatally wrong. Back in the council chamber, a new voice rose. This one belonged to the Sarathi envoy, her body long and serpent-like, her eyes glowing red as she hissed. Let us record this moment. Humanity has overreached. Their final hours have come. Let us mark their fall in history so no child of the stars will forget their mistake. The chamber erupted with approval. Some slammed fists on their tables. Others released screeches of triumph. It was the sound of 1,000 species laughing at the idea of humanity's survival. To them, the humans were an insect to be crushed beneath the heel of a greater power. But the humans had heard this laughter before. On Earth, across the centuries, enemies had called them weak. Empires had risen and declared their doom. Armies had marched, certain of their victory. Yet always humanity endured. Always they fought back, and in this war, they had something the council could not measure: silence, patience, and the kind of fury that does not burn out. The first human fleet was hidden near the edge of a red dwarf star, its glow masking their presence. Their flagship was a giant of steel, larger than anything the aliens imagined humans could build. Its hull carried scars from older battles, marks that told a story of survival. Inside, men and women stood at their posts, calm, waiting for the order. The ship's captain looked over the crew, and with a single nod, the silence turned into a storm. Engines roared to life. Shadows lit up with fire, and the hidden fleet began to move. Far across the galaxy, alien scouts reported strange readings. Small signals appeared where there should have been none. The council dismissed them. More human tricks, one leader scoffed. They are desperate. Soon they will break. But desperation was not what moved the human fleet. It was precision. It was cold planning. The narrator's voice hardens now, pulling the listener deeper. They said humanity would fall in hours. They did not know that in minutes their fleets would burn. They did not know that the war they had begun would end before it truly started. In the shadows of deep space, the first battle lines were forming. Alien warships advanced with bright weapons glowing. They believed they were about to crush a broken race. They did not see the trap closing around them. Human warships spread out like hunters, engines leaving trails of light across the void. The largest vessel, dark as night, moved into firing range, its weapons charged, glowing with raw energy. Inside the control room, silence hung heavy. Every officer waited for the command. The council, far away in their crystal chamber, still spoke of hours. Still spoke of doom. They did not know that the countdown had already begun. 3 minutes until contact. 2 minutes until the first strike. 1 minute until the galaxy would learn what humanity was truly capable of. The hook closes here with suspense, leaving the audience leaning forward, waiting for the inevitable clash. The war has not yet begun, but the stage is set. The arrogance of the Council has been marked. The silence of humanity has turned into a storm waiting to break. They gave humanity hours before extinction. Humanity would need only minutes. The council chamber was alive with voices, each one certain of the same truth. Humanity's fate was sealed. The predictions were spoken with such confidence that no one dared to question them. To the alien leaders, the war was not even a war. It was an execution. A towering member of the Clith Empire stood and raised his spined arms. His voice thundered across the chamber. The humans will collapse as the dust collapses beneath the storm. Their fleets are too small, their weapons too weak, their courage nothing more than noise. The stars themselves will turn against them. The declaration was met with applause. Fanged jaws opened in triumph. Wings fluttered in the air and cold laughter filled the space. The council no longer spoke with caution. They spoke with arrogance, drowning themselves in the certainty of victory. The Seraph the envoy hissed again, her eyes shining red. Even now their worlds tremble. Even now their leaders hide in fear. We have given them the honor of ours, but perhaps even that is generous. Perhaps their fall will take less. The chamber shook with agreement. The laughter grew louder. But in their arrogance they did not see the silence that lay beyond their walls. They did not sense the cold stillness of human fleets hidden in the dark. On Earth, in control rooms buried deep beneath mountains, human commanders watched the skies through long-range sensors. They did not celebrate. They did not speak of victory as certain. They studied every angle, every movement, every breath of the enemy. One commander, old and scarred, leaned over the table where holographic stars flickered with the shape of fleets. His voice was quiet. They think we will break. They think we will run. They have forgotten what it means when humanity stands with nowhere left to fall. In the council chamber, the alien arrogance grew stronger. They opened bottles of glowing liquids, toasting the end of mankind. They began to argue not about if humanity would fall, but how quickly, and who among them would claim the spoils of Earth. The Valen speaker, his body a swarm of shifting insects, buzzed with laughter. Their oceans will belong to us. Their mountains will fuel our minds. Their cities will be monuments to their foolish pride. The humans were warned, and yet they dared to resist. No one questioned it. No one spoke of risk. To the Council, humanity's destruction was already history, waiting only to be written down. But history does not listen to arrogance. History listens to fire. In the shadows of space, humanity's fleet was silent. Men and women sat at their stations, their faces calm, but their hearts steady with fire. They did not know if they would live to see another sunrise, but they knew their duty. They had heard the voices of the Council declaring their extinction, and they had answered with silence. Silence was the weapon of the patient. Silence was the mask before the storm. One young officer aboard the flagship whispered into the still air, almost as if speaking to himself. Let them laugh. Let them toast. They have no idea what waits for them. Far across the stars, alien warships advanced in long, shining lines, their confidence painted across the sky in bold formations. Their captains spoke of glory. Their crews shouted of victory. Not one of them believed the battle ahead could be lost, and yet there was unease. A few alien scouts had seen strange signals at the edges of space. Some had noticed shadows moving where no ship should be. Reports had been sent to the Council, but those reports were laughed away. Human tricks, they said. The desperate illusions of a dying race. The Council's arrogance blinded them. They could not imagine that the humans had built warships larger than theirs. They could not imagine that in secret, humanity had forged weapons designed not to last hours but to end wars in minutes. The narrator's voice turned sharp, slow, pressing the weight of what is coming. Arrogance is the blindness before the fall. The Council saw humanity as weak, but what they truly saw was the reflection of their own pride. The Council continued their speeches, declaring the end of mankind. They recorded their words for history, certain that future generations of the galaxy would laugh at the folly of humans. Yet as the last words echoed through the chamber, the countdown had already begun. In the silence of space, engines stirred, weapons lit, shadows moved into position. The aliens toasted humanity's final hours. Humanity was preparing to crush them in minutes. The void between stars was calm, almost peaceful. The alien fleets moved with confidence. long rows of shining vessels cutting across the blackness. Their lights glowed like rivers of fire, weapons primed, shields humming. To them, this was not a battle, but a parade. They were marching toward the easy destruction of a smaller, weaker race. But far in the shadow of a broken moon, humanity's fleet waited. Engines muted, weapons charged, silence heavier than iron. Every ship was dark against the stars, hidden until the moment came. Crews sat at their stations, breath slow, eyes fixed forward. Inside the human flagship, the command deck glowed with faint blue light. Maps of enemy fleets floated in the air, their numbers vast, their formation perfect. The silence was unbroken until the captain spoke. His voice was calm, steady as though he had no doubt. Begin the strike. The order spread through the fleet like fire through dry grass, engines flared. Shadows turned to light. Dozens of massive human warships surged forward, breaking from hiding with a speed the aliens had not believed possible. Their weapons glowed, lines of red and white power building until the void itself trembled. The first shots tore through space like thunder given shape. Great beams of energy cut across the dark, smashing into alien warships before their crews even knew they were under attack. Explosions bloomed in silence, fire scattering across the black as whole sections of ships disintegrated. On alien bridges, panic erupted. Captains shouted orders, but their words carried fear. Their shields were strong, their armor thick, yet against the human strike they shattered like glass. Ships that had been built with pride burned within seconds. From the council chamber far away, reports began to flow in. At first, the leaders ignored them. A Sarathi officer hissed in disbelief. Impossible. Human weapons cannot pierce our walls so quickly. But the reports continued. Wave after wave, each carrying the same truth. Alien fleets were falling. On the battlefield, the humans pressed forward. The flagship released a storm of missiles, each one glowing with deadly light. They streaked through the void, splitting into smaller shards that curved and hunted their targets. Alien ships tried to scatter, but the swarm followed, breaking through shields and tearing them apart. A young alien officer screamed as his screen filled with fire. The last thing he saw was the silhouette of a human ship, vast and dark, before his vessel vanished in an explosion that lit the void for miles. The human fleet moved with precision. Every strike was planned. Every maneuver had been decided long before this day. The aliens believed they had hours to crush mankind. Humanity gave them minutes to burn. The narrator's voice slows, pressing weight onto each word. The council had declared humanity doomed. The council had promised their fall. But in this moment, as alien ships shattered and commanders screamed, the truth was revealed. Humanity was not the prey. Humanity was the storm. On Earth, command rooms erupted with signals of success. Calm voices reported alien losses, one after another. Enemy destroyer destroyed. Enemy carrier breaking apart. Enemy line collapsing. Still, the human commanders did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They watched with cold eyes, determined to finish what had been started. In the council chamber, the arrogance began to crack. Alien leaders leaned forward, voices sharp, fear breaking into their tone. How? How are they doing this? Where did they build such power? But there was no answer. The humans had built their weapons in silence, away from the eyes of spies. They had forged strength from survival, from every war of their past. And now in the space of minutes, that strength was unleashed. The battlefield became a graveyard of alien pride. Dozens of ships floated broken, their fires casting a red glow across the black. The human fleet cut through the chaos, relentless, unstoppable, each ship moving like a blade through flesh. Alien soldiers who once laughed now screamed in panic. Their commanders shouted retreat, but the lines had already collapsed. The humans had struck so hard, so fast, that the very idea of victory melted into fear. The narrator's voice sharpens, cold and final. They said humanity would fall in hours. Humanity answered with fire in minutes. And in those minutes, the galaxy changed forever. As the last waves of missiles struck and another alien flagship split apart, the council's arrogance broke fully into silence. In their chamber of crystal and light, leaders who once spoke of triumph now stared in disbelief. Their prediction had failed. Their pride had blinded them. And the war they thought would end humanity had instead ended their fleets. The strike was not over. It was only the beginning. But in that first clash, the message was clear. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not doomed. Humanity was the power they had never understood. The battlefield was no longer calm. It was fire, chaos, and silence broken by endless destruction. Alien warships that once shone with pride now drifted in broken pieces, their hulls glowing red with the heat of explosions. The human fleet moved like blades through the dark, cutting down enemy lines with every strike. The minutes that followed were heavy with terror. A single human cruiser launched a beam that pierced straight through 3 enemy destroyers in one shot. The ships cracked open, spilling fragments into the void. Their lights flickered and died, swallowed by the cold of space. Alien voices screamed across open channels. Shields failing. Engines down! Retreat! But retreat was no longer possible. Every escape route was already cut. Humanity had planned this strike with precision, turning the void itself into a trap. The narrator's voice slows, pressing each word. The Council promised humanity's fall in hours. Humanity delivered their fall in minutes. On the bridge of the flagship, calm voices filled the air. Officers spoke with discipline. Target locked. Firing now. The deck shook with controlled power as another barrage tore across the battlefield. Alien battleships split apart like paper caught in flame. The council chamber, once loud with laughter, fell into confusion. Messengers rushed forward, their screens glowing with reports. "The fleets are collapsing," one stammered. "The humans, they are stronger than we believed." "No," another alien leader snapped. "This is a trick. This cannot be real." But even as the words left his mouth, another report arrived. Another fleet gone. Another flagship destroyed. The arrogance that had filled the chamber began to rot into silence. Out in the stars, alien admirals tried to reorganize. They screamed at their crews, trying to form new lines, but the human attack was too fast. Missiles curved like hunters through the void. Beams of fire cut across space with precision. Ships that once seemed invincible broke apart in under 60 seconds. The humans moved with purpose. Each warship advanced like part of a greater design. They had no interest in glory, no need for spectacle. Their strikes were simple, brutal, and final. Alien fleets that had trained for decades, fleets that had bullied weaker species into surrender, now realized they were facing something different. Humanity did not play for time. Humanity ended wars in minutes. The narrator's tone sharpens, cold and final. Every second became a grave. Every minute became a tomb. The Council's predictions dissolved in fire. From Earth, commanders received the reports. Their faces remained steady, their voices calm. Enemy Fleet Sector 3 eliminated. Sector 4 retreating. Sector 5 gone. Still no cheers, still no celebration. Only silence and focus. Humanity knew the war was not finished until the last enemy fled or burned. Aboard the alien ships, despair spread. Captains who once spoke of glory now begged for survival. Crews who once laughed at the thought of humans now prayed for escape. But the escape never came. The humans gave them no time. Minutes passed and entire lines of alien warships were gone. The council chamber could no longer deny the truth. Their faces, once proud, were pale with fear. How did they build such weapons? One whispered. How did we not see this coming? But it was too late for questions. The answers burned in the void with their fleets. The minutes of fire dragged on, merciless and unstoppable. Alien ships turned to wrecks. Their signals faded one by one until the battlefield was filled with only human warships, engines glowing steady in the silence. The narrator delivers the line like a knife. They gave humanity hours before destruction. Humanity gave them minutes before defeat, and in those minutes the galaxy itself changed. The crystal walls of the council chamber no longer echoed with laughter. The sound that filled the vast hall now was silence, heavy and crushing. Only the trembling of voices broke it, voices that once declared victory but now spoke in disbelief. Reports continued to arrive. Screens glowed with streams of red symbols, each one marking another fallen fleet. Alien leaders who once toasted to humanity's death now leaned forward, their faces pale, their hands shaking. The Krell elder, the one who had first promised that Earth would burn, slammed his stone hand on the table. Cracks spread across the glass, but his voice carried no power. This cannot be true. Our fleets are countless. Humanity is nothing compared to us. Nothing. But no one answered him. The Sarathi envoy hissed, her long body coiled tight. Her red eyes flickered with panic. Their weapons, they cut through our shields as if they are paper. This should not be possible. This cannot be real. One by one, the voices of confidence turned to whispers of fear. They asked questions no one could answer. How had humanity built ships of such size? How had they forged weapons with such strength? How had they done this in silence, unseen by the spies of the Council? The answers did not come. Outside the chamber, the galaxy watched. Messages spread through countless worlds. News of alien defeat reached systems faster than the light of their dying ships. Races that had once trusted the Council now questioned it. If humanity, small and underestimated, could destroy fleets in minutes, then perhaps the Council was not as mighty as it had always claimed. The Council leaders felt that weight pressing on them now. It was not just defeat. It was humiliation. Their predictions, spoken with arrogance, were now being remembered as lies. The narrator's voice cuts cold, steady. They thought they would write the story of humanity's fall. Instead, they had written their own shame. The elder of the Clith spoke again, but now his voice was thin. We must retreat our fleets. We must stop this before our power is broken beyond repair. But it was already too late. More reports arrived, each one worse than the last. Human fleets were not slowing down. They were pushing deeper, striking harder. Every second that passed was another wound to the Council's pride. Inside the chamber, the leaders argued. Some demanded surrender. Others demanded new fleets. Some cried for vengeance, others for peace. Their voices clashed, filling the hall with chaos. The unity that once defined the Council cracked apart, like glass struck by a hammer. And yet, through all the voices, one truth was clear: they were afraid. For the first time in living memory, the great Council of the Galaxy, a gathering of species that ruled the stars for centuries, was afraid of humans. The narrator slows here, letting the words hang. Fear is the shadow that follows arrogance, and in this chamber where pride once ruled, fear now reigned. Beyond the chamber, the battlefield was nearly silent now. Alien wreckage floated across the void, the human fleet still steady, still moving, cut through the remains without pause. They had not fought for show. They had not fought for vengeance. They had fought with one purpose: survival, and survival had turned into domination. Back in the chamber, the Sarathi envoy lowered her voice, almost whispering. If this continues, there will be nothing left to stand against them. The elder of the Krell looked down at his hands, the same hands that once pounded the table with certainty. Now they trembled. He had declared humanity would fall in hours. Instead, his fleets had burned in minutes. The shame was carved into his very bones. The Council could no longer deny the truth. Humanity had risen. Humanity had crushed their pride. Humanity had turned their predictions into ash. And from this moment forward, every leader in the chamber knew one thing: the galaxy would never again look at humans with weakness. The battlefield grew quiet. Wreckage drifted through the void, glowing faintly with the last fires of broken engines. Pieces of alien ships turned slowly in the cold, silent as tombstones. What had begun with confidence and arrogance had ended in fire and ash. The human fleet stood firm among the ruins. Their engines glowed steady, their hulls scarred but unbroken. To the crews there was no cheering, no loud celebration. They knew what they had done, and they knew the cost of it. Their victory was not marked with noise but with silence, the silence of those who understood the weight of survival. From Earth to the farthest colonies, messages arrived. Families who feared the end of their world now received words of triumph. Leaders who braced for defeat now saw hope rise again. The Council had declared that mankind would fall in hours, but the truth was now carved into the galaxy itself. Humanity had ended the war in minutes. The narrator's voice lingers, steady and cold. This was more than a victory. This was a warning written in wreckage and fire. In the Council chamber, no voices rose now. The leaders sat in silence, their eyes locked on the reports that showed the destruction of their fleets. Their arrogance had been broken, their predictions humiliated. They knew the galaxy would remember this day not for their words, but for their failure. The Sarathi envoy lowered her gaze. Her red eyes no longer glowed with pride, but with dread. "We thought them weak," she whispered. "We thought them fragile. But they have shown us something else. They have shown us what happens when humans are cornered." The Krell elder who once promised Earth's destruction bowed his head. He could not bring himself to speak. The shame of his words hung over him heavier than stone. He had called for humanity's fall. Instead, it was his fleets that had fallen. The Council, once feared, now trembled in its own chamber. For centuries they had ruled the stars with certainty. But certainty had died in minutes, burned away by the fire of human fleets. The news spread faster than light. Across distant worlds, species whispered of humanity. Some spoke with awe, others with fear. But all of them remembered one truth. Humanity was no longer a fragile race. Humanity was a storm, and that storm had swept away the arrogance of empires. The narrator hardens the words like steel. They gave us hours before extinction. We needed only minutes to rewrite the fate of the galaxy. On Earth, the old commander stood in the dim light of the war room. His eyes were tired, but there was fire in them still. He looked at the map of the stars where red enemy signals had once filled the screen. Now those signals were gone. Only the blue lights of human fleets remained. He spoke softly, his voice carrying the weight of history. They thought we were finished. They thought we were dust. But humanity has always been more than what others believe. Silence followed his words. It was not the silence of fear, but of understanding. The crews aboard the warships looked out through the windows into the void. The stars shone with cold light, the same stars that the Council had claimed as their own. But now those stars reflected something different. They reflected a new truth, a truth the galaxy would never forget. For the Council, the legacy was shame. Their arrogance had destroyed them. For humanity, the legacy was power. Not the power of conquest, but the power of survival, the power that came from standing when no one believed they could. The wreckage of the alien fleets drifted forever in the silence of space, a graveyard for those who had mocked humanity. Each broken hull was a reminder that predictions mean nothing when faced with will and fire. The narrator's voice lowers, slow and final. The galaxy had thought humanity's end would be counted in hours. Instead, it was the Council's fall that was counted in minutes. And those minutes will echo for centuries. The camera of imagination lingers on the human fleet, vast and steady, framed against the stars. The message is clear. Humanity is not to be measured by fear or arrogance. Humanity is to be remembered as the force that turned minutes into victory and silence into power. And with that, the story closes.